It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
We just spent 40 minutes on this. It was very important. I really want to get into the issues we kind of agree on and disagree on in the time we've got. So just let me budget out time. Nick, how long? Are you good for another hour?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, let's do another hour.
Okay, but I'm going to give you the floor right now on the bigger issue. Just as a media analyst, smart futurist guy, very good at predicting things. You predicted Trump would really have big trouble with Israel trying to control his administration. I don't think they're totally controlled. They're certainly trying, so we've got to deal with it. I want to get into Iran, how they're trying to get back in there. You're, from what I've seen, saying Trump does want a police state. I disagree, at least so far. I want to get into all that with you, but what is it people want to know personally, what it's like for you to have everybody pile onto you, which I would have told these people, actually did, some of them. I said, if you think somebody's bad, you understand doing this to make them bigger. And so, I mean, this is exploded, and it's only getting bigger now. And I'm one of the few people that's experienced what you've gone through multiple times, like many times, but I wouldn't even say, well, I've had deplatforming and big blowups that have been as big as this. Okay, there's not many people other than like a Trump or even a Tucker getting fired at Fox that have had a blow up this big. So clearly, I don't think you started this blow up, and I can see both sides of the beefs and everything. But just what is it like for you now? And then just saying you're not Nick Fuentes, but you still have your brain. What do you think is going to come out of this? I think it's the right move, a smart move, a good move to say, hey, just debate me or have a friendly discussion. And I think it needs to happen. And I'm talking about Tucker specifically. And, Elon is a regular listener. We've had some big, long discussions on air. I think you should talk to Elon. I think Elon should talk to you. He hasn't done these spaces in a while. They get hundreds of millions of views. I don't know why he does it, or listeners. Well, one with Trump got over 1 billion. I think people want open discussion. We know they want it. And populism and freedom is the hottest thing. Why not take it to the next level? And of course, I'm not somebody that courts raw controversy for no reason. I don't go around and they call it infighting, but insert myself in these things. I try to be the peacemaker. People I think are overall doing good work, even though they disagree on some things. But I know they know this. The people that have attacked you, they've been hurt by it. You've been helped by it. And they're doing good work. I would like them, like when Trump 40 days ago came out and said, there's no Epstein, shut up. I said, I've never seen any evidence you really involved in anything bad. Why are you doing this? You need to stop it. It really hurt him in the polls. So that's my philosophy, is targeting the globalists and focusing on them. If Republicans or populists do something bad, I will report it. But the Democrats are so much worse. I spend 90% of my time on them. Trump does this stuff, shove about Epstein. He killed himself. He didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't human trafficking. He had no accomplices. There was no blackmail. I'm like, do you understand this is the biggest Streisand effect ever? Day one. I got huge backlash from the, kind of Israel lobby that says, we're MAGA, you're a panicker. The same groups that attacked me when I was, against going to full war with Iran. So I could see it was synthetic coordinated attack. And then I pulled back from that. And the day one, I said, Trump's behind this ordered cover-up. And then 2 days later, it's like, yeah, I'm the one. Shut up. It doesn't exist. Well, I mean, of course I knew that. Then I made calls and confirmed it. Then I made calls and talked to folks that were in long meetings with him. Then I learned a lot of stuff I'm not even allowed to say. I halfway leaked it. They stuck his wife in there and other lies, pissed him off. They knew what they were doing. And you can give your own opinion of where you think this is going. It subsided some. If you'll just stop saying, don't talk about it, it'll probably go away. But I'd like to get to the bottom of it. So that's kind of again, stream of consciousness on that. So take some time here. I'm trying not to interrupt. And what is it like personally for you? And then where do you see this going? And then do you agree with me that the fact that so many people across the political spectrum in the world are really galvanized around you and supporting you, that is not just because you're smart and well-spoken, all the rest of it, because people piled on you, which is so obvious, and people want the underdog. They can see it. I've experienced it myself. But this is also a bigger symbol of the total collapse of faith in the system. But people that still try to blame both sides and act like they're anti-establishment, but then still kind of go after whoever they see on the leading edge of intellectual resistance, that's just not smart to turn the country and the world around. And we want to overcome all this bullying culture and intimidation and just break it. And you're doing that, and I'm trying to do that. And so it just doesn't seem wise. But it is a big complex amalgamation, so I can see how people see you as an easy target, but not in this climate. I mean, I mean, obviously, I agree with a lot of what you say. I think you're smart. I've liked you. I've known you for 8 years. And you're a popular guest on my show, and I'm all about good thought and discussion and debate and, you know, what the listeners like. I'll give my ideas, you give yours. But, I mean, I could see years ago, and I told the crew, I said, Nick Fuentes is going to get bigger and bigger. And I said, and I've tried behind the scenes to influence you some, saying, hey, you might want to press the gas so much they're going to kill you. But that's not because they're telling me to do that. I'm getting money to do it. I'm like, you know, fly too close to the sun here. But it doesn't matter. That's where we are anyways. And so it's kind of damn the maneuvers, go straight at them. So that's my rant. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how it feels, it's a little bit frustrating because I feel like for as long as I've been doing my show, for as long as I've been doing this, and as much as people talk about my motivations or who I really work for, you know, this kind of stuff, all I've ever really wanted is for people to listen to my ideas. It's just to listen. And what I think really resonated with people when I clapped back on Tucker, it wasn't even so much, I spent 3 hours talking about the CIA and all this stuff. The part that resonated was the very end of the show, where I addressed the personal attacks. Because in addition to him insinuating that I work for intelligence or something like that, he said I'm a weird gay kid in a basement from Chicago. I'm a child. And in the clip that went viral on TikTok and Twitter, I said, did you forget when you did that part of your show that you're always pandering to the young white men? Isn't that kind of like the lead? Isn't that like the story of the past 10 years? Is the young white men who have no meaning in their lives, who are struggling to get married, who can't afford a home, who don't feel any allegiance to the country. They don't feel like they're a part of the country. There's no society. There's no social fabric. It's like, did you forget that, you know, those are the people that you purport to care about, that you're trying to win over, you're defending their interests? And in the clip, I said, I am that guy. Like, I'm of that demographic. I'm 26 years old. I was born in 98. I'm Generation Z. I said, and like the Turning Point students, the chapter leaders, like all these people, I went to a selective school. I dropped out. I come from a working class family. College was very expensive. I got canceled because I supported Trump in the 2016 election. You know, he woke me up. Like, I went through all these things that they're always talking about. I'm facing these challenges they're always talking about. You know, anything that you want to say, incel, racist, Trump supporter, like, I represent all those different kind of facets of the, you know, disaffected young white male. I lived it. I am it. And so for Tucker to kind of have that tone, and for people like Candace and Elon to just hit me now with like a new attack. For 10 years, it was, you're a racist, you're a Nazi, you're this. Now for it to be like, oh, you're a Fed, you're a basement dweller, you're this. It's like, you know, I, as a representative of this generation, am just saying the same thing we all are, which is, you know, listen to us. Instead of trying to put us in a box and speak for us and say, we're going to do a show about Klarna, we're going to do a show about the affordability crisis for homeowners, why don't you listen to the source? And, you know, with all these different things, he's making accusations about Joe Kent. I have a very solid response to that, but they won't listen. You know, Tucker says I'm this hateful, crazy extremist. Why do you attack these people? I have explanations for this stuff. I do a show about it for 10 years. And you would think, you know, clearly what I have done, this movement that I've created, it has become a phenomenon. I think that's inarguable. Whether you love it, hate it, whatever you think about it, it is widely talked about. It's become a phenomenon. You would think that people would look at this, and rather than dismiss it or hand wave it away, they might try to understand it. You know, if there's a charismatic guy in the middle of it who is, you know, kind of beating the odds against the censorship and all this, created this diehard following, this cult-like following, you would say, what's the appeal? What's the basis?
And people coming to your house to kill you. We covered it, and almost no one else. When he got killed by the cops after trying to kill them, he comes with a gun. I'm here to kill you at your house while you're on air. And then almost no one even defended you. I thought that was really chicken shit.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. You were one of the only people that covered it. So God bless you for that.
Well, why not? They're coming after me too. I expect you to, I've told you on the phone, hey, I expect you to defend me too, buddy.
Yeah, you said bail me out of jail, and that you got to bail me out, right? So it's goes both ways. But yeah, so I mean, I'm the subject of all this controversy and all these different things. And you would think that they would just take a good faith interest and just sort of like a journalist, just kind of jump into the middle of it and say, what is this all about? Why do these young people gravitate towards him? And for 10 years, they just don't get it. They're just not listening. Even Charlie Kirk, who isn't really a part of the latest drama, but Charlie Kirk, he got a caller that called into his radio show, and it was a mother. And the mother said, my 2 young kids, they're really anti-Semitic. I think they're following some online personality. She's obviously talking about me. And Charlie Kirk says, oh, that they're going down a dark path. You need to tell them that blaming Israel for your problems is victim culture. And I listen to that and it's like, wow, it's been 10 years and you still don't get it. Like, you still don't get why people like me. You still don't get why people are angry. You still don't get it because you're not listening. You're not taking it seriously. And you almost wonder, when will they take it seriously? I think they're taking it seriously now, because I would bet you 2 bits that when Tucker and Candace did that show and made this dishonorable drive-by gossipy attack, I'm sure they talked about it beforehand. Do you want to cover this? Yeah. How are we going to treat it? I'm sure when they did this little drive-by attack, they thought that they were going to get away with that. They were going to do this little snipe on me. They're going to make me look like a jerk. They're going to humiliate me, and people are going to pile on to me. I would bet you 2 bits they had no idea the kind of backlash they would get from that clip. And you wonder, are you taking it seriously now? Now that you see the ferocious reply, not just from me, but on TikTok and from my supporters, are you going to take it seriously now? And are you going to listen to what we're saying? Because I don't even want to be praised. I don't want adulation. I don't want the glory. I just want people to listen to the arguments. And that's really it. For as much as people like to talk about my sexuality, people like to talk about my home situation. Do I live with my parents? People talk about all this stuff. It's like, I want to talk about the war in Iran, as you know, because we covered this together. It's like I'm intensely interested.
Right. And I want to take a break and come back and get into the meat and potatoes now and where we agree, where we disagree. But they're mad. I'm not talking about Candace and Tucker and all them, because they're trying to stop the war too, and in Ukraine. But the system is definitely mad, and we did get hit by the Israeli bots, you and I and everybody else, who were just covering it and saying this is crazy. And then that is what's weird. Then after all of that, which boosted what you're doing, boosted what I'm doing, but I just, like you, just cover whatever's interesting and I think the truth, that you are just a bellwether of the overall mind of the public. And that's where I'm always at, is where is the public? And I don't then go where the public is, unless where the public is where I'm already going, which I pretty much got them there in many cases. And so I see someone avant-garde who is having success, and I see all the anti-white, anti-Christian racism that's so intense, and who's running it, the ADL. I'm not a guy that just hates Jews in general, and the person that is a victim and blames them for everything, because there's different groups, different things going on, different power blocks. But when you have the ADL trying to pass federal laws to arrest people that criticize even Zionists. I mean, I played the clips last week. I mean, this is tyranny. When you've got them already, their counterparts passing those laws, B'nai B'rith and all them in Europe, this is the model. And so the left, with all its tyranny and its love of Islam and all its censorship, is bad and has been terrible and done more censorship. But now Trump claims he's against censorship, but more and more is bringing in the ADL. I've got clips of it saying they're basically running this angle of censorship that's totally unconstitutional here in the United States. And you've got governors in Texas, everywhere, saying if your city has a resolution against genocide in Gaza, you will pull all state funds. And if you're a contractor with the state for school lunch program or building highways, doesn't matter, you've had a 20-year contract, we're canceling it. That is 1,000 times beyond McCarthy and even more intense than the left and is beyond cancel culture. It is the social credit score, China, literally here. So that is a big, big problem. So I want to talk about that with you, where we agree on that, where you think Trump's going. Iran, they're trying to bring that back. And then I disagree overall. I don't want to mischaracterize it. I haven't had time the last day or so to watch the show, but I saw some of the tweets and statements, where you're like, I don't know. Before I thought it'd be good to have National Guard deport the illegals, but God, this could be for Israel to enforce on us. But then I understand constitutionally what he's doing. That's why these courts have been upholding ICE, upholding the Guard stuff. And I know why Trump's doing it, because the Democrats are planning to burn the country down. That's in Podesta's own plan. So while we're busy focusing on Trump and we're pure and we're making sure he does it all right, and I get it, I do it too, are we ignoring the Democrats that literally already tried to put you and I and everybody else in prison and tried to kill Trump? So I want to go to break. People can follow him on Rumble at Nick J. Fuentes. Also on X. You can follow me at Real Hog Shows on X, Infowars.com/show. We also have a stream on Rumble as well. And actually tune in, because I get up at 4:35 a.m., so I rarely, because it usually starts late. I do a lot of times once my younger daughter goes to bed. I'll sit there sometimes in bed and I'll go, oh, nice intros, nice promos, but I'm like, it's 10 o'clock, it's 10:30, and I get that's how he does the show, and I'm like, all right, I'm out. And then I get up in the morning and get ready, and I'll have it on the background. But I catch a lot of the show. I catch the clips. I mean, I'm a listener because he's got witty humor. A lot of it's snarky. I've been watching him for years, off and on. And I do the same dark humor. I've cut back because they misrepresent it. And he'll make some sick joke, and they go, I'm just joking. They cut that off, and then they can take 8 years of stuff and put a string of it together and misrepresent it. And that's what's going on now. And there's new attacks on Nick that I'm seeing that are even nastier, that I'm not going to go there. And I predicted to Nick a week ago. I said, I think that'll be the next attack, and that's where that's going. And so, if these people aren't being given talking points and it's just a piling on, then Nick keeps saying, meet with me, talk to me, have me on. You'll get top ratings. What are you scared of? I mean, you'll get more views in a Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson debate than the Putin. I mean, I guarantee you, if they had that debate next week, let's say next Thursday here, or where I'd host it, or I guarantee you 100 million views on X, 100 million on YouTube, Rumble. I mean, it'll be why would people not want to give the public what they want? I mean, I'm salivating. Here's the deal. I'll get ratings if it aligns with the truth and it helps people. I don't do stuff, bite the heads off bats to get attention like Ozzy, though I like some of his music. My point is, I can do stunts all day and get ratings, but I want ratings tuning in to hardcore awakening information. You understand? I don't want just ratings. I want ratings on truth. And this is the most obvious. Currently, the hottest debate would be Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. So I've talked to Tucker here and there. He's really busy, so am I. But I'm going to call him tomorrow and just say, man, you got to do this. And if it's not here, wherever, I don't care. I'll be there. And I'd like to be on a panel, maybe a 4-hour panel discussion. Nick Fuentes, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson. Give them what they want. My God. And this is where we need to go, not eating ourselves alive. I wouldn't even call it infighting. I would call it a fratricide, because that's what that is, killing your own people. And so that's where it's at. And there's also some fear, out there that, what if Nick is some deep, operative or whatever, because he's, going after Trump. But look, Trump's doing it to himself. So you can't blame Nick or me, because I know I'm good. I mean, I know I'm calling the shots when I'm freaking out over Trump blowing his feet off, and blame me for all the trouble Trump just got. That's bullshit. Trump's enemies are my enemies. They want to put me in prison. I need Trump to succeed, but I will not sell out my values or my integrity for it. And when I go after Trump, it's to get him back on the straight and narrow. I don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Nick's reached that point. We'll debate that, because I disagree with him on that after the break. Right now, stay with us. Want to thank the crew for putting up with me and the great job they do. All right, it is 6:16 Central Time, where I'm at in Texas, where Nick is in Chicago. And it is emblematic that we're not in D.C. or New York or L.A. We are the outsiders trying to take the country back. And I overall think Nick is a good actor, a good person, a person that means well. And for 26, he's forced to be reckoned with. And I just want to, everybody out there fighting tyranny to stay alive and moving the Overton window back to liberty and away from political correctness. But we do have something we really disagree with, at least from what I've seen, some of the things you said recently, though I haven't done a deep dive on it. And, well, tell us your view on Trump federalizing D.C., talking about Chicago, talking about New York, talking about L.A., National Guard, Rapid Reaction Force. What do you think Trump's doing? What's your concern?
Well, in principle, I agree with it. In principle, I love it. And I said this on my show last night because Chicago is a dump. New York is a dump. And it's worse. It's violent. It's filthy. It's chaotic and all the rest. And under normal circumstances, I would have loved this announcement from Trump that he's moving the police in to take over. But the announcement about D.C. and federalizing law enforcement there, it was accompanied by another announcement about a DOD memo where they say they're going to form this new, it's like a quick response task force made up of 600 National Guardsmen on a rotating basis that'll be stationed in Arizona and Alabama. Now, to be fair, this is something that they talked about doing 5 years ago. They talked about doing this in 2020. You got 300 National Guard in Arizona, 300 in Alabama, and that way they could rapidly deploy a federalized, military force into a city in the event of civil unrest. I don't think it's a terrible idea by itself, honestly. And like I said, it's been around for 5 years. But in principle, my concern with this overall is that right now, we clearly have an occupied government. That's just not in dispute. When you look at what Trump has done with these other departments, at Department of Education, they're breaking the backs of Columbia and Harvard and installing anti-Semitism monitors. At State Department, they're revoking citizenship for people that criticize Israel. At all these other departments and agencies, at FEMA, they're saying we're not going to do search and rescue for a hurricane if your municipality was involved in the BDS movement. And so it's there's clearly a pattern here, which is that they're finding ways to use these statutes and regulations and things to benefit a foreign country and this particular people. That is symptomatic of influence. So when they say they're going to deploy the National Guard to do a law enforcement role in Chicago and New York, do I think that means that necessarily they're going to come to New York and arrest everybody that criticized Israel? Not necessarily. At the same time, I can't cheerlead an expansion of the security state when, as such, that state is being used to support the interest of a foreign power. So when I look at it on an axis of more government and less government, ideologically, I'm a statist. In a vacuum, I'm in favor of a bigger government. But when the government is occupied, I have to lean more towards a libertarian the libertarian side of that axis, the libertarian pole. And so that's where I have these mixed feelings about it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the worst idea, but you do get a little nervous when you see the Palantir being deployed, when you see the National Guard coming out, all this stuff. And at the same time, you see every department is putting out a statement about anti-Semitism. It's okay, how long before this is going to be used against Nick Fuentes and Dan Bilzerian and Jake Shields and these types of people? That's always my concern. So I'm wondering, what do you have concerns about that? Or do you kind of get where I'm coming from? Because on some level, I think we're on the same page that in principle, this is a good thing. But maybe in practice, it might leave something to be desired.
Obviously, as George Washington said, fire government is like fire, a dangerous servant, a fearful master. So clearly, I'm the guy making films, writing books from the Democrats and also Bush, father and junior, were literally trying to train the military and police for gun confiscation, martial law. That was confirmed. So we were really worried about that. But it was the military itself that would leak the information to us and say that was wrong. So these forces aren't being trained for political enforcement or gun confiscation or any of that. We're locking down the Capitol and putting up fences for 6 months, all the rest of it. It's for when the Democrats, under the Podesta plan, said if Trump would have won in 2020, they were going to have blue states secede, blue cities, create civil war. They produced a movie that came out last year, big budget, civil war, showing a Trumpian figure with all the minority groups together with the military and a black sergeant, woman executing a Trumpian figure. That's their dream. They've been planning uprisings. They've been planning this, and now that Trump was able to win, they've re-implemented this plan. So I think, towards your point, but disagreeing with the actual motive, this isn't just for rounding up illegal aliens. This isn't just for basic riots. They know the Democrats are planning some really big stuff, and quite frankly, rapid reaction forces of 500, 600 people are nothing. All governments of any size have these for civil unrest or outside groups trying to trigger coups. And you see all these Democrat judges being overridden by appellate courts saying, oh, Trump's a tyrant. He's not allowed to deport people. It's right in the Constitution. So people said, oh, how do you know he's not a tyrant, a king? Well, I mean, I can read the Constitution. I've had lawyers on about it just to double check. And of course, that's all been overridden. You argue, and I think you're right, he could be doing a lot more, and it's anemic, but he was handed a emasculated, castrated enforcement system. So I see Drudge, that is literally run with the Democrats now. Trump building police state, watch and monitor citizens, widespread discontent among National Guard, Pentagon plans reaction force. I don't see it as that, but even if he uses it for a good reason, as a Band-Aid for all the crime and the Soros DAs and all the rest of it, then when somebody else comes in later, it's in place. And then to your point, I mean, I agree with like 30% of what you're, I mean, I see the concern, but for the way it's being deployed, I know why Trump's doing it. He asked for 10,000 National Guard for January 6th. He could have overridden the mayor, Bowser. He could have overridden Milley, who threatened to resign. He didn't because they were setting him up. So I don't see it from Trump, that perspective. He's the guy letting nonviolent offenders out of prison and stuff, even more than Democrats. I see it as him trying to warm the military up and get the public ready for the globalists to try to trigger a civil war, which they say they will do. But one headline in Drudge is true in that they are watching the citizens. And I've not defended Palantir. I've explained Microsoft, Google, and of course, Amazon, when you look at government funding, have thousands of % more money from the government currently than Palantir to surveil, to spy. 15 years ago, Alexa, let's stay in your house. Bezos running the CIA servers along with Microsoft. Now, Palantir's coming in, as they said they would, to offer Trump a system to try to watch all of that and give him control, like one ring to rule them all. So I'm not defending Alex Karp. Very troubling, at EU summits. I helped target and surveil everybody across Europe and Germany and the UK and put them in jail for their right-wing speech. My biggest fear is a Christian nationalist throwing me out of a window. So he's definitely got his hard on for Christians. He's definitely got that classic ADL bent to him. But you see Thiel over there backing Trump and other things, and I know his background, obviously, In-Q-Tel and Poindexter and all that you've covered lately. Everybody's, well, I'm not taking your thunder away. You've done a great job presenting it, but that's old news. I'm glad people are discovering it now. But that's all true. My issue is I just see them as a rival group trying to come in and get control, and the idea that they're going to put us under a police state, they're going to put us under a surveillance state, it's already there. I want to dismantle the whole thing. And then my focus is, let's focus on Karp part of the time. Let's also focus on Eric Schmidt of Alphabet. Let's focus on those guys too, so people get the wide-ranging view. But it is true that all of these systems they're bringing in can be turned on the people. And it is true that Palantir has this big enemy list. So why don't you speak to that?
I guess I would just say, in general, when you say the globalists are coming after Trump, I almost don't know who you're talking about anymore, because who attended Trump's inauguration? It was Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. It was all the big tech and little tech people. I saw a clip from CNN the other day, and a presenter on CNN said Trump is brilliant. He's a mastermind. And what were they talking about? His cover-up of the Epstein files. So it's like CNN and the New York Times, it's like room service journalism for Trump. In the middle of this giant scandal, he's walking on the roof And they're saying, Mr. President, why are you on the roof today? Like, who's even resisting Trump anymore? Silicon Valley and Wall Street are in bed with Trump. The Democrats have no resistance. The law enforcement, little tech, these up and comers like OpenAI, Palantir, Anduril, these guys are all behind Trump. So I just kind of look at the whole situation. I survey the whole landscape and I say, I just don't see the resistance. I don't see Trump anymore as a figure that is actually against the globalists. That's a big reason why I turned on him. He's supporting the war in Gaza. He's clearly unwilling to restrain Israel. He's in bed with little tech and big tech in Silicon Valley, and JD Vance is the nexus for that. He cut the corporate tax rate and won't deport the illegal laborers on behalf of Wall Street. He's trying to get Jerome Powell to cut the interest rates to charge up the economy. It's like, so I see him basically as part of the system. So when he's bringing these troops out there because of the Democrats, it's like, I think in reality, the National Guard's being deployed because there's going to be a second Iran war. And when there is, there's going to be protests. And I think that's the real reason they're being sent out there. No different than how they shut down Colombia and now they have like an anti-riot security presence over there. They banned pro-Palestine protests on these Ivy League campuses. They're sort of employing the same thing in the major cities. So I guess me as a former Trump supporter, I was there in 16. As you know, I was there in 20. I was up there right up until roughly 2022. I just don't see him as an opponent of the system. I see him as basically part and parcel of the system at this point.
Well, I think that's a valid concern, and I'm not totally disagreeing with you. But just because people go to his inauguration, just because Bill Gates acts friendly, but behind the scenes is fighting Trump, doesn't mean they're on board. These are a bunch of snakes. That said, there is a lot of capitulation to Trump because populism is rising all over the world. He's seen as a figurehead. He's having a lot of success. And so I do see that. But if we're going to take the government over, at some point, these institutions will be taken over. I'm not endorsing all that's going on. I'm saying it's a paradox. But guys, go to Nick Fuentes' X. He doesn't do a lot of posting there, so it'll be easy to find. I saw the clip. I actually had it on the list today that I had to go to an emergency court hearing. But it's not all of CNN's doing it, but this particular host, is a big Trump supporter. Most of what he shows is true. But he is sitting there going, it's wonderful. Interest in Epstein has plunged. Trump is a genius. This is amazing. And again, the optics of that are, well, if you're not involved in it, why the hell is it good that interest is plunging? So, Nick, let's talk about Epstein, because this has been bizarre the last 40 days. And I actually don't see interest in it subsiding. I don't think it's peaking like it was a few weeks ago, but this is a smoldering fire. What do you think's happening here?
Well, I think that when Congress comes back, they're going to be calling more attention to it. It does seem to be the case that the public has largely moved on. And we talked a little bit about this. It's like any news story. You give it a couple weeks, and no matter what it is, people are going to talk about something else. And with the internet, these things move very quickly. But that clip, it's almost like from a movie. It's almost like a parody. You have, and look, the guy is Jewish. You have a Jewish presenter on CNN saying, all-time low, 89% drop in interest in the Jeffrey Epstein cover-up. Trump did it again. He's a genius. He covered up the Epstein files. And it's like, is this real? Is this like an AI creation? Is this a Gemini creation? The idea that, you would show that to a Trump supporter 7 years ago, 8 years ago, it would almost be hard to believe that it's real, that that's a real clip. And you think about the way it was in 2016, it was like 9/11 every day. I mean, you remember, you were there, you had him on your show. You're like the veteran of 2016. In 2016, we were being punished every single day. They were apoplectic. It was like Trump getting elected was like the Holocaust. It was like they said the worst thing that happened to America since 9/11 or Pearl Harbor. And now it just feels like this cakewalk.
And that's the paradox is we've been through so much to support Trump. He's doing a lot of good. And you can say, well, this CNN guy, this is like bad satire. Like you said, when I saw it myself on another feed. I saw it on your feed a couple of days ago. And I watched it like 3 times, and I'm like, this isn't even real. Does this guy even understand what he's saying? And this is supposedly a Trump supporter. He's a genius. Look at how his cover-up has worked. And I'm sitting there like I'm almost being involved in a conspiracy if I was a Trump supporter, which I am overall still, and I went, yeah, great, he's really done that, when he's the one that came out 40 days ago and said, shut up, you're not my supporter, I don't want your support. He didn't, he committed suicide and all this. It was so insulting. And then again, last week, he did it again, saying it's all a big hoax after he said, okay, release the information. I mean, this is just crazy. So what is Trump thinking? Here is one of the most bizarre clips ever from CNN a few days ago.
I would say that this is, from at least a political point of view, quickly turning into a dud of a story. What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
Which is wild. Which is
this has been for 3 weeks now.
Exactly. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name. That's been trading off between Taros and Vladimir Putin, with obviously the meeting coming up later this week. But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing burger.
So out of sight, out of mind, maybe, is applying here a little bit. But has it impacted, have you seen numbers that have this has impacted Trump's popularity, favorability, anything?
No, not really. I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look at the overall numbers. Trump's approval rating in July of 2025, it was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where he was in his first term at this point, he was at 37%. So he's 7 points higher, very much in a different political universe now, significantly higher in terms of his overall approval rating than he was at this point in his first term. And more than that, among Republicans, his approval rating is near a record high, hovering right at about that 90% mark. So no, he hasn't lost any of that base. And when it comes to that center of the electorate, he's basically holding on there. And his overall approval rating, 44%, is pretty gosh darn good for him, considering where he was at this point in term number one.
What do you think is behind it? Why there hasn't been more movement?
Yeah, why hasn't there been more movement? I think this is pretty simple. Take a look here. Nation's top issue is the Epstein case. This is the number of respondents. This isn't the percentage of respondents. This is the number of respondents. In our last CNN poll, look at this. 0 respondents said that the Epstein case was the top issue. How about among independents? 0 independents said that. And among Republicans, and therefore overall, just a single one. So yes, there used to be a lot of interest in this story, but the bottom line is that even amongst those who had high interest in this story, it wasn't something that they thought was all that important. And as I said at the beginning, the interest in this story has fallen off the table.
Which also, when you look at this and you compare it to just the attention that Capitol Hill was giving it, Donald Trump supporters were giving it, congressional committees were giving it, it is incongruous.
I would just say this. Donald Trump has some of the best political instincts of any politician I've seen. And on this particular issue, you see it full well and clear, because he has been saying, you know, this is not an issue. And it turns out that a lot of the American public actually seem to agree with him.
If you dream
wow, so Bill Clinton and Bill Gates, the head of Harvard, and all them in the middle with those kids and the prince over in the UK, just, this is great instincts. Let's just totally do a 180 and just shove about it. Then you ask what's coming next. And so I've seen you be critical of Elon, though he's done a great job on X with free speech overall. But I talked to people that were in the meetings. That was a real split. And he came out before all this happened 4 months ago, and said this Epstein thing's going to be a big deal. It's going to be covered up. And then I was told by people in the White House, yeah, it's because the CIA and Mossad are involved. They asked Trump to national security. But then why would he come out and Streisand affect all of this, Nick? Because this is wishful thinking. Anything big peaks and then subsides and then comes back as an even bigger wave. And it's not a prediction. It's a guarantee. The Republicans have already said, yeah, we want everything subpoenaed, including from the Democrats and the DOJ. So there's CNN hoping nothing to see here, like the Naked Gun, nothing to see here. That's not going to happen, Nick.
I love that guy's accent. I love the presenter's accent. It's very interesting. He's like celebrating. He's like, look, no one cares about Epstein, with this like interesting little accent there. As far as
let's say this. I've seen the guy a lot. He's not normally that excited. He looks like he's having an orgasm here. He's like, I'm surprised he didn't spike a football.
He was spiking a dreidel, I think, so something like that. Spiking something that's a little on the nose. But what's interesting about the Elon connection, which is super important, and you know, you brought this up because you're super perceptive on this stuff. everybody forgets that Elon Musk brought this up back in June and said that Trump is not going to release the Epstein files because he's in them. And I wasn't the only one. You did. And I also said, I wasn't the only one that noticed that he also had a black eye when he said that. He's in the Oval Office for the last time with a giant black eye, which Trump even made a mention of. Trump said on Twitter, or he said it, I think, to the press, he said, I offered him makeup. He turned it down because he wanted everybody to see his black eye. So they're drawing attention to this. This was the last meeting. Now, shortly after the last meeting, as you said, it was a real split. And Elon puts out this tweet. It's like a nuclear bomb. Trump is in the files. What happens a week later? Israel starts a war with Iran. The war goes on for 2 weeks. The war ends. Netanyahu comes to the White House to celebrate on July 7th, 7/7. The day before, the DOJ pushes the memo burying the Epstein files. And so it's like this weird bookend. Now, there's some new information on this. There's this weird bookend where you have the Epstein scandal starts a week before the war. And, or I suppose, you know, they kind of spike this with Elon Musk's comment before the war. And then they initiate this next round of it when the DOJ buries it with the memo, when Netanyahu comes to the White House to finish the whole thing with their celebration about the Iran war. There was a piece in the Times of Israel last week where a rabbi in Israel said, and this is an unsubstantiated claim, but it is interesting. It was published in Israeli media. They said that the Israelis, of course, were not happy with Trump because Trump bombed Iran just once. He bombed Fordo, he bombed Natanz and Isfahan, and he did not destroy the stockpile of enriched uranium. Now, the Israelis expected that they could draw the United States in to hit Iran many times, to not just destroy one or some of the facilities and partially damage others, but that they would attack Iran's energy infrastructure, their conventional assets like their missile launch platforms, their government buildings, things like that. Israel was not happy that the United States did this limited strike and then called off the whole war, restrained
Nick, I don't
Israel.
think that's speculation. I knew that from the White House insiders. Israel wanted full regime change. I mean, they called for it.
Absolutely. It was in Foreign Policy magazine just yesterday, and they were calling for it the whole time. And the point is, they were disappointed that Trump didn't deliver. They were mad that Trump did not do it. Now, there was this rabbi from the Times of Israel who said the reason the Epstein scandal happened was a punishment against Trump for not taking it all the way. And you almost wonder, because of course, you know, the Epstein scandal, it does have a lot to do with Israel. Pam Bondi, who is the attorney general, she is a super Zionist. You know, that is something that was claimed without any evidence, but you almost wonder, is this being deployed as like a political football? Is this being deployed in a certain way to hurt the Trump administration? Because like you said, you have called a lot of attention to the strangeness of how it's being handled, how the White House has kind of been fumbling this, how they've really, it's almost like they're trying to make it worse for themselves. And so you wonder if there's some connection going on, because for me, all eyes are always on Iran. They want us to fight this war, a war that they know that we do not want to fight. Like, there's no public support for a protracted Middle Eastern conflict. Donald Trump himself has no appetite for such a war. And so it's like, how do you get America, with all these timelines in mind, the snapback sanctions, the midterms, Iran rearming themselves, the breakout timeline for a nuclear bomb, is like, how do you get America into a war quickly? And it happens coincidentally with this Epstein scandal. I can't shake the feeling that they're related in some way. Now, maybe that's crazy, but I feel like there's something to do with that. And then to see it in the Times of Israel reported over there, it was just a little bit too on the nose. It was a little freaky.
I mean, obviously, Israel wants us to go to full war with Iran. This was just phase one. Where do you see that going? And why do you, gut level, you make the joke, I say that, but it's true, think Trump did the perfect Streisand effect? He can't be that stupid. Why did he act like that?
I think he just made a mistake. I think if anybody fumbled it was the Department of Justice. I think that Trump, he hates it. You could tell. He's angry. Like, you could see it in his face. When Elon Musk put out that tweet, I think it was back in June or May, when Trump was asked about it at a luncheon about an hour later, you could read it. I mean, this guy does not have a poker face. He was livid. He was seething. And I think he still is. Every time it's brought up, like he cannot handle this. So I don't think it's necessarily Trump that is Streisand affecting this. I think it might be the administration. It might be elements inside the government. I think that somebody spiked it and now they don't know how to deal with it. Or maybe Trump knows that there's something in there that's going to be problematic for him in some way. Obviously there is, because he ordered the FBI to look through the files. They told him that they found his name all over the files. We don't know what's in them. So it's hard to say exactly why, the psychology of Trump, what's happening inside of his head. I think that's organic. I think that's just his real reaction. I think gut level, the big play is they want to go back into Iran. This has been reported widely. The clouds are gathering all over again. The snapback sanction deadline is at the end of August. I think Israel is going to go back into Iran. And I think they expect that the United States is going to come in heavy and it's going to be a major war. That's kind of where I see this going. And maybe getting rid of the Epstein.
I totally agree with you, Nick. So I got you on here to debate you on the police state martial law thing, but then I actually heard what you had to say. I overall agree with you. But that's all my intel. And I predicted this. I said they're going to say Melania it was a hooker for Epstein, which they already recycled 8 years ago. And they're going to put in the Jane Does that were fake. Trump got pissed because he'd already made a deal with the CIA Mossad to just kind of shelve it. They still came back and stung him in the ass with it. He throws a fit about it because that's the deal he's got, which I'm not agreeing with that deal. People go, Jones agrees with Trump making that deal. Look, I've been read in on it, okay? Let's just say people close to the president. Because it's so many public officials, so much big stuff, it would bring down the stock market, he believes. I'm not saying that's the right way to go. I said they're going to stab him in the back. Then it turns out they put his wife in there. Now they admit it isn't true. Now she's going to sue him for $1 billion. Hunter Biden. You can see this. And again, folks, Trump's 79. He's very smart in many ways, has some good instincts, but he's super busy 20 hours a day. They just hand him stuff. And Kyle Serafin's a big FBI whistleblower. He gets proven right all the time. 99% of the time. He said 4 or 5 months ago when they were raiding the FBI and New York for not giving over the documents, the feds were raiding the feds. He said, you're not getting it, and it's a cover-up. And he said, and now they got the PR people, or the same people that were there before. They're going to tell the DOJ what to do. They just go to press conference and PR function and dinner after dinner. They're just titular heads. Bongino, Patel, Bondi, literally just Fox News host. And they're setting them up with stuff, with this Epstein file, saying it's all there, and it's all going to be BS on Trump. He literally called it all, and they just took that giant trap. And so people, the Q people, God love them. I know JFK Jr., he's really the president, and Hillary's in Gitmo. They're having a big problem now, but they just get more delusional. And they literally think Trump has like a 5,000 IQ. Like there's Trump, Q, and then God. Okay, like God's a junior to them. And I wonder what it's like when they go to Dealey Plaza 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and JFK Jr. doesn't show up, and they just, there's indictments. Everybody's in Gitmo. And that's a whole other subject. I said there wouldn't be indictments the first administration. I've heard from high level, and so has Matt Taibbi and others. They said, no, we've been told we've got to, even if the cases don't stick, though they have a lot of evidence, our constituents demand it, which I totally agree with. So that's a whole nother subject. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as the, the Q stuff is concerned, I mean, these people, I feel sorry for them. It's going to wind up like Heaven's Gate or something like that. I mean, it's pretty terrifying. I've seen it on Twitter. I get it all the time, the 5-dimensional chess and all that. I think that the big concern as far as the Epstein files are concerned is that there might be an impeachment. I think that they're playing on this because the Democrats are pushing so hard for a disclosure. They're coming back from the summer recess very soon. Like you said, they're going to subpoena all the records. They're keeping the pressure up. And you almost wonder if they're hanging it over his head for a potential impeachment when they lose the midterms in 2026. It's almost a given that the Democrats are going to take the House after the midterms. It's very rare that the Republicans, or rather the incumbent party, gains seats in the House. I think it's only happened once or twice in the last 80 years. So the Republicans with a 2 or 3 seat majority, they're almost certainly going to lose the House. And then you think about the map inside the Senate, and you can find 3 or 4 Republicans that would impeach Trump. So between a Democrat House, You're going to get maybe a few defectors in the Senate. There's like a real risk. And it reminds me a lot of what happened after January 6th, which is that after January 6th, Mitch McConnell was using impeachment, holding that over Trump's head to prevent him from doing something extreme. Everybody was worried that in that time between J6th and J20th in 2021, Trump is this lame duck. He's not accepting the results of the election. People worried he was going to do something radical. So Mitch McConnell said, there was, of course, the impeachment in the House. He said, I will let the vote go forward if you don't play ball. And I feel like that's how they've kind of been controlling him in some sense, to the extent that I think that Trump might have good intentions or might want the best for the country. To the extent that we can still believe that, you have to look at him as somebody who is under such immense pressure and really inside of a trap in the interregnum with all these charges from the DOJ, Georgia, and New York. And now in this second term, it's almost like double jeopardy now with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. So you have to think that's in the back of his mind. You have to think that that's what people in the White House are thinking. Certainly the Democrats cannot wait to impeach him when they come back. And take the majority, with this no kings stuff that they're doing all the time. They're probably going to impeach him 100 times when they get back. So I think that is maybe the protracted long-term play on the whole Epstein thing. If I were to take a guess, I think that's what Trump is concerned about. I think that's the Democrats' angle. And you got to wonder then, who does Trump have to answer to prevent that from happening? And who runs the GOP in the Senate? It's pretty obvious who's running the show over there. They signed a letter a couple months ago saying Iran can never have enrichment. That gives you a pretty good idea of maybe what the ask is to forestall some kind of attack. So that's kind of my instinct on all that stuff. Maybe that's out there. Maybe that's outlandish, but just kind of paying attention how this has evolved.
I don't think it's outlandish. And what's crazy is I've studied the Epstein, one of the first people to ever cover it. It's mainly Democrats and a corporate blackmail money laundering operation. Trump would never go to Russia and get pissed on. It came out it's fake. He doesn't join the cult. He takes the cult over. Okay, he wants to be the apex guy. I don't mean that in a bad way. And I know the inside baseball. He never did any of this stuff. So him doing this, he just said yesterday, I'm meeting Putin in Russia, in Alaska, and folks, I at 51. Occasionally when I'm exhausted or tired and pushed too hard, like a few weeks ago with Nick, got up at 4:30, worked all day, a hard workout, did a bunch of shows, went home, hung out with the family. They got pizza and wings, and I'm on a diet most of the time, but I pigged out, and people are like, he's drunk. No, I was literally falling asleep. It was like a late night, 10 o'clock at night, I was gone. Folks, Trump does interviews at 2 a.m. now, okay? He sleeps 3-4 hours, all right? And so at 79, yeah, he goes and plays golf. A lot of the time he's really smart, but he goes in and out of gear. And we're seeing more and more of it. And I don't say this like the Democrats undermine. They said this 8 years ago. It wasn't true. For back then, 75, it was 73. Incredible stamina. Got great Scottish and German genes. But I'm telling you, folks, let's not lie. He's 79. His legs are swollen. His ankles are swollen. His hands are swollen. The guy's a bull, and they can't get him to stop working. They come and brief him. Oh, sir, there's a missile fired at 2 a.m. And he's on most of the time, but he's having to delegate to everybody. And so I'm not here being an apologist for Trump. All I know how to do is tell you from my research and what I see what's happening. And that's the final thing, Nick, and anything else you want to say, and I appreciate the time. It's been an interesting discussion and debate. How do you quantify, or how do you do this? Because I'm not a lesser two evils guy, but also, if I'm in one ship that's only got a small leak and the other ship's sinking, I'm going to stay in the ship that's got a slow leak and isn't sunk yet, I get to land in. So I see the Democrats that want to put us all in jail. They're open pedophiles. They're open devil worshippers. They're openly trying to bankrupt things. They're pure evil. They're part of the globalist operation. Sure, they see Trump winning, so some of them are acting nice to his face, but he's fundamentally changing a lot of their systems, and Bitcoin in the National Reserve and 401ks, and just he goes on and on and on and on, and overriding these federal judges and dominating them and getting a lot better appointments in. And it would take hours to talk about the good. I mean, it's 90+%. And I understand there's been some betrayals and the direction's starting to go the wrong way. So if it keeps going that way, it gets bad. But how do you separate that? Because listen, I have people not just coming to me, he's talking about Nick Fuentes and all the stuff's going on. That happens a lot too. But the other thing I get is, I get it. I was at Barton Springs. I went twice this weekend because my 8-year-old daughter wanted to go twice. I don't go very often, but we went Saturday. She loved us. We went back Sunday. And it was mob, shaking hands, young, old, black, white. But I had like 5 people come over and go, when are we going to get indictments? When are we going to get this up? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, hey, whoa. They were like, I'm not in charge. And I get it, like I said, on the street everywhere. I even see the Newsmax reporters and stuff saying, hey, we're getting mobbed by people, demanding this stuff. So I want to try to, stop the Democrats, block them 100%, try to get good Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others in, build our beachhead, support Trump where he's doing good, try to put pressure on the administration and expose bad actors where we can, where we've already had a lot of effect. We know it has an effect. To me, taking the ball and going home, I'm not saying you've done that, but saying, I'm done with Trump 2 years ago. You warned of the Israel thing. You were right about that. I get that. Isn't it when it's the only thing we got, try to then even more jump on it to try to get it to do what we want? I mean, it's threading the needle there, but do you get where I'm going?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And I think I used to be more of that mindset in the very beginning in 2017, 2018. But look, it's been 10 years. Trump came down the escalator 10 years ago. And I look at where we are now in the White House, and it's like, look, they backed down on the deportations in February. In February, they said it's not going to be mass deportations. And by the way, I know you are 100% right. When you say ICE does not have the personnel, that is a fact. They do not have the personnel. They do not have the infrastructure, the funds. They're spinning it up. It takes time. I get all that. You're 100% right. But from the top in February, they said, we're not going after the farm workers. We're not going after the construction workers because that's going to hurt the economy. And the situation with Iran, we go from we're not going to get involved to we are to we're bombing them to, well, we're going to support regime change maybe if it comes from the bottom up. And it's like here we are 10 years later and NATO has gotten stronger. NATO's spending more money. We're bombing Iran. Greater Israel is literally within sight. They're annexing Gaza and the West Bank. You have the Epstein files being covered up. There's no accountability for the Democrats, for Clinton, Obama. There's no hearings. There's no charges. There's no nothing. And so it's like 10 years later, you got to say, look, this is not the revolution that was promised. This is not the accountability, the anti-corruption, the make America great again. We didn't get what we were promised. Now, there's kind of like two things that we can conclude from that. In the first place, we have to express our dissatisfaction. I am not of the mind that it is helping anything to be on Twitter, and I'm not saying this is you, but other people say, no matter what Trump does, we have to support it. You have been critical when it matters. There are so many people that say, no, just trust the plan. It's all going to work out. No, at the minimum, we have to express our dissatisfaction. If Trump will ever deliver anything good, it is because he needs to please his base. He needs to please his base to win elections, to win the midterms, to have political capital. So at the minimum, we need to charge him for that and say, if you want our support, you got to make us happy. That's one. But two, this is maybe the more radical side of me, says, I feel like even the idea that we're in this game where we're fighting for the personnel and, we're on Twitter, please, Trump, don't do this. Please, Trump, do that. It feels like we're on a hamster wheel. It feels like a big diversion. It feels like we're negotiating with ourselves. And we're sort of saying to ourselves, oh, we're in this fight. We're fighting this uphill battle. But it's like, let's be honest. Trump has cucked out every time it has mattered. In the first term, we didn't get a wall, so we got 10 million illegals 4 years later. In the first term, Trump made the vaccine, and then we got the vaccine mandate. It's like this stuff keeps happening. And my kind of game theory is to say, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is insane. If we keep doing these things and the chance of them succeeding is zero, let's just try something else. That's why I have always been a proponent of saying, let's just stay home. Let's have a protest candidate. Let's run somebody like Ye.
Let me stop you. Let me stop you right there. And I want you to finish up and elaborate. I just want to say, I totally agree with you. And let's talk about this briefly. We really saw this because I've been online a long time. I can tell the groups, I can go check it. We know we had groups check what I already thought was true. We had big Pentagon bot farms, Israeli bot farms, neocon right-wing bot farms, and then the Ben Shapiros and the Mark Levins and all the usual suspects come out instantly when Israel was cranking up to try to drag us into war with Iran a few months ago and say, you're not real MAGA, you're imposters, and you're pro-Islam, and you're really leftist. And I immediately saw them flag all our accounts. I saw our traffic get driven down, which bounced back up because people saw through it. And I saw the attack calling me and you and everybody else these traitors. And they can say, oh, Fuentes is really a liberal. Fuentes is really CIA. I don't believe that. But I can tell you this guy 100% isn't. Because I know me. I know my mama and daddy. Okay, and so the same people doing that to him were doing it to me. I'm not talking about Tucker and people now. That's why it was weird to have them come in later. This was the bad guys. And Trump, don't be a panicking and all this stuff. Hey, buddy, we're holding your feet to the firing. We are demanding. We are telling you what to doing. We are in a charging, not a panicking. We brought you in. Populism is happening all over the world, 1776 worldwide. And I said many times they would say, you're a panicking. You're a fake Trump supporter. I'm like, listen, I'm not make America great again, bitch. I supported that idea and that movement. I am 1776 against the tyrants. I am revolution against tyranny. I am freedom here and worldwide. I am America, all right? And I've been on there 31 years, and we are credited by the sociologists and the mainstream Democrats in the textbooks. That's why they hate me. Ron Paul and Alex Jones, our listeners and viewers, we were just a focal point, went in and took over Dick Armey's Tea Party in the late 90s, okay? It happened. We took it over. A third of the people at Trump's event there in Cleveland when he got the nomination in 2016 were wearing my shirts. The media saw it. They finally freaked out. They finally recognized, oh my God, this is powerful and grassroots. Then they came after me. The knives came out. Just like they finally figured out, oh, we can't just call Nick, Hitler or a gay kid. That doesn't work, so now let's destroy him. They went, whoa. When they went there and had airplanes flying around with Hillary's a rapist and big vans with TVs flashing it and a third of 100,000 people wearing my shirt, they went into war mode because they were still so arrogant up in their towers, some of the Democrats. So the fight is about taking control of the Republican Party, keeping control of the Republican Party. And that's what I'm saying is, I was never make America great again. We helped create the launch pad for it, and I want to make America great again, but I want to make America free again. I want to stop the globalist tyranny. I want 1776 worldwide, which is happening. And so MAGA is some little thing. It's not like I'm some guy in junior high that wants to be in the cool kid class and I run for school president and I'm kissing everybody's ass and going to Toastmasters so I know how to properly fold a napkin. I'm here to wreck the globalist. I'm here to deliver war on their ass with the truth. I am here to overturn them. I am here to politically, nonviolently burn them down. And so I get where you're coming from, Nick, to be pro-Trump, get in the system, have them persecute you, kick you out because you wouldn't submit to Israel worship. To me, it's the same thing. You try to make me engage in Trump worship, it triggers me. I just want to be careful that I don't get too emotional over that and then not continue, because some Trump supporters are more sophisticated than Democrats, but Trump's not a cult, but they want to be in a cult. I want to nicely try to explain to them so they don't, get mad, because they think anything coming out of the administration came out of Trump and 55 trillion D beyond God chess, okay? All right, I mean, they could, get in the toilet when Trump takes a shit and read the entrails, like tea leaves to see the future. I mean, they would worship Trump's shit. So my deal is, I know the real world, and I know, here's what I meant to say. You said it so quick like you do, but here's the key. They didn't have all those bots ready day one to attack us all with talking points and a massive conservative and corporate media attack because we're weak. It's because we're strong, all of us, the people watching. And they had to come in there and do that because they're scared of Trump's base. So all I'm saying is don't give up to everybody. Don't walk away. Be critical, support what's good, and also be very vocal on what's wrong, because that's what the globalists, I mean the whole BlackRock, Pentagon, Israel, the whole blob wants that. And I'm just saying support the areas of good things we're getting, support the good members of the administration, but at the same time, then hold Trump's feet to the fire, and that means his administrators. I mean, I've had Kyle Seraphin on. Every week he lists FBI agents that are deep staters, they fire them. But Tell do all that. And the fact is we have to do that. You think I want to sit here every week and target high-level FBI deputy directors and people? No, but you think I want to fly airplanes around the country saying Bill Clinton's a rapist and, pay listeners $10,000 a piece if they got on public TV and called him that? We paid out $500,000. You want to run him on a hit list? So to anybody out there, and I don't need to say all this, but Nick, I'm watching Nick. He's inspired me to actually talk about bona fides because Nick's got a lot of bona fides. Means things he's done. Notches on the gun belt. Guys, the idea that I'm CIA or I work for the establishment, holy hell, all I do is wreck it. And I'm a testimony with me and my crew and my family that we've gone through this together. And that's why I know there are real people like Nick. I know there are real people like you. Like I said to Nick a few months ago, he agreed. The devil's biggest trick isn't that he doesn't exist. That's the second biggest. It's that good doesn't exist. You know you're good. So for the mentally ill Q people that think I'm a clone or the left that thinks I'm really a Nazi, no, guys, you're the ones that are bad. We're the ones that are grassroots. We're the ones that brought the receipts. Nick's already got a 10-year record himself. I can't imagine what it's like when he's 50. So this is a magic moment right now, and 100%, we have the power. We need to use it. Nick, closing statement. Anything else you want to add?
Absolutely. I agree. And I think it is about fundamentally, and I think you said it so beautifully, there has to be on some level a decoupling. It's no longer MAGA. It is 1776. It's America first. We need to assert our interest first. It's not about Trump. It's not about this administration. It's about this country. It's about America first. So I think people should keep speaking up, and I think they should keep their options open and not be beholden to a politician, even one that you like, even one you agree with. We need to keep our options open and keep our eyes focused on the prize. So those are my closing thoughts, but it's been great to be with you. Great debate, great conversation. Always is. I know you're not a clone. I've met you. Same guy, not cloned, not anybody, no weird stuff
real
going
fast,
on.
Nick, as you did a quick closing statement. You always quantify it quickly. We're not selling our birthright to Trump and his family in some dynasty. We're not in a cult, and we're not setting up some new aristocracy or some new royal line. No, we're 1776. We're Americans. If somebody supports that and is good, we'll defend them. But again, this idea they've tried to sell the Republican Party of now Trump's gone through all this, he's the royalty, don't question, that's a damn cult.
Yes, I'm moving to Iowa. I think that, you always ask me, what's the play? What's the next move? I think the next 3 years, to be honest with you, are cooked. And I know you're in it to win it. I know you're pushing Trump, and I know people in the administration. But you know what I think about? I think about how Mark Levin had lunch with Trump a week before the war in Iran. I think about how Laura Loomer enjoys like unlimited access to the president. Darren Beattie has a job at the State Department. Darren Beattie runs Revolver. Why does Alex Jones not get invited to have lunch with the president? I'm sure you probably could if you push for it. And I know people in the White House, but it's like the real patriots don't have a seat at the table like the neocons do. Susie Wiles and these other people that are inside the administration, they were loyal to Trump throughout. Trump's campaign manager on January 6th was saying, this guy needs to be put in jail. For what it's worth, Tucker had his text messages published and said, I hate Trump. I can't wait until he's gone. Why is it that people that are disloyal have access, but the people that were loyal and are loyal to the movement have no access and seem to have very little influence over the president? So for me, it's like, if I don't have a seat at the table, I'm going to flip the table over. And if you don't want that, then give me a seat at the damn table.
Well,
and I feel like the next...
absolutely, freedom is not given. It's demanded and forced. And so it's an important discussion, important debate. I agree about 9% of what you said, but it's all been eloquently stated. And just to be clear, I have been invited to Mar-a-Lago. I have been invited to the White House. And when it happens, I just go, oh, sure. And then I don't actually do it. And it's not that I'm a wimp, but they still got moles in there and everything. I can do everything on the outside way better than politics. And going and having dinner with Trump and 10 other people and being patted on the head, what happens is, as soon as that happens, and again, I'll tell the truth on air, and whatever happens, happens. But for some reason, that triggers them so bad the deep state, when it's like putting kryptonite next to a nuclear weapon or whatever, or two kryptonites together, they just go crazy. So I have been, and they tried to spin it that I was offered to be bribed, and I guess I was, too simplistic about it. No, when I was criticizing, Trump on the Epstein thing, I got White House calls saying, we think you're right. We don't know why he's doing this. There's no evidence. He gets really mad. What do you want? I mean, like, what do you want us to do? Wasn't like, oh, we'll give you a bag of money. It was like, what do you want? What do you think we should do? But it was also like, what do you want? You want, so a little bit of that, but not like, oh, there's a bag of money here. But nobody offered me bribe me. That's what they do. But that's what most people do, is they're there just to get a job. They're to do that. No, I want to build my own thing. That's what freedom is all about. Are you doing your stream tonight, Nick?
Yes. Yeah, I'll be going live in a couple of hours.
But you never give people the time. So what time is it tonight?
I'm feeling 9:30. Feeling 9:30 Central tonight.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you get ready for that in less than an hour and a half, or I guess that's 2 hours, 25 minutes. All right. Nick J. Fuentes on Rumble.
All right. So we got Alex Jones, Nick Fuentes, part 2. Oh, Tucker, come out and play. Nah, I mean, Alex Jones, he's funny, man. I haven't watched a lot of his content, but he's funny. Very intense and passionate. Like I said, it's new to me. And seeing him and Nick, that was dope. So we were able to finish out the rest of that interview. I think it was staged as a debate, but obviously, it wasn't a debate. Didn't come across like that to me. I just thought it was a conversation that was dope. And I'm hoping that Tucker Carlson will be open to that invitation that Alex Jones said that he would extend to mediate a conversation between Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. You see where all the bickering has gotten to. And it's funny looking at this or seeing this and understanding that it's from 4 weeks ago, because what does it do? It does the same thing that we've talked about on a lot of our previous videos, where it has people separated on the 2 to 5% that they disagree on. And when it comes to Nick and Tucker, I can't even say that they disagree on 5%, but it just becomes something outside of two people working together with common goals of putting America first and advancing American society, making our country better. I believe that they both want that for the country, but because they've allowed whatever bickering to get in between them actually just sitting down and have a conversation, it really robs all of us of the opportunity to not only learn from a conversation between those two, but to unite maybe the following from Tucker, the following from Nick Fuentes, and obviously use that as leverage with the united front in order to get the things done that they both agree on. Because a lot of us follow Tucker. A lot of us are influenced by Nick. A lot of us agree with the things that they're both saying. And it's a shame that they're separated rather than putting the egos to the side. And I have to say that it's more on Tucker at this point. Nick's been saying he wants to have the conversation. Tucker, we'll see. Alex Jones supposedly reached out. We'll see what the future holds. But let's move on. Let's move on to the conversation that Alex Jones began to ask him about when it came to federalizing DC and Chicago with the National Guard, bringing them in there. Nick brought up something that I was not even thinking about. Nick brought up the fact that he believes that Trump is going to bring the National Guard into, I think it was Nick, I don't think this was Alex, but bring the National Guard into these cities because eventually when we're at war with Iran, they're saying that, or Nick is saying, I think it was Nick. If it was Alex, then y'all correct me on that. But he's saying it's because they think there's going to be a lot of uprisings. I keep saying that. He thinks that there's going to be a lot of uprisings with the war in Iran, and having the National Guard stationed there, it'll be a quick response and be able to address those issues. I don't know where I am on that, but I didn't even think about it like that. And also, when they bring up using the National Guard to police a lot of the things when it comes to anti-Semitism and what's been going on with Israel, when you look at Trump's administration thus far, it has been a lot of that. You can criticize the American government, but if you're here as from a different country and you're at a college and you're criticizing Israel too much, you're getting the boot. That's what seems to be happening. So we'll see what ends up happening in the future, but that is something for us to think about, the dangers of the National Guard coming into these cities. I was looking at it from a different standpoint. I was initially looking at it like the National Guard, it would be good. It would be good if our military, instead of being engaged in all these other foreign affairs, could come to these communities where we need brave individuals, because they are dangerous communities. Brave individuals that people can respect, where there's not the animosity already associated between the police and the community. You know, you don't have that. You can have an outside agency, somebody that comes in, mediate a lot of this stuff, and just be good role models in the community, in my opinion. But obviously, just like anything else, as they're discussing, it would have to be done the right way, because a lot of these things can have the perception of having good intentions, but they can be used to do things that either bring about some form of evil or are not aligned with exactly how they're presented to us. So Nick said, you know, in principle, he loves it. In principle, he loves it. And he said something about he's a statist. You know, he said it. So Nick said in principle, he loves it. But the problem is that we have an occupied government. And when I sit back and observe what's been going on, as I just said, I can understand those hesitations. Almost anything that Trump does moving forward, I'm questioning at this point, as far as who is this benefiting? Is this benefiting America? Is this benefiting Israel? Is this something that Trump's just doing because somebody has something that they're holding over his head? Even it came up in their conversation where a lot of people believe that this whole Epstein thing with Trump is because Trump went easy on Iran instead of going full throttle with the regime change. Something that I didn't even think about. I'm being totally honest with y'all. So this is why a lot of these conversations are important, because we're not going to hear these conversations on mainstream news outlets. I don't think. I wouldn't know. I don't really watch them. If I see a clip here and there, but I try not even to watch the clips. There's just so much other uncensored, straightforward, and direct content that I'd rather digest. You know, that's what I want to put into my mental. So now I got this whole pause thing because Nick Fuentes is saying pause. He ain't getting that pause stuff out of me. Y'all take it however y'all take it. Let's move on. Oh yeah, so getting back to what Nick said regarding that he would normally be a statist, where he would be okay with more government. But now, because he believes that the government is influenced by Israel, he's more of a libertarian. And this reminds me of something that I've thought about for a while, but I really haven't, I guess, felt as confident to put into words. Like, I wasn't sure. It was just something that I was thinking about. And Nick's statement made me think about it even more, where when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, it's seen as conservatives, Republicans, they want less government, right? And the Democrats, liberals, they want more social programs, more government. And when we understand, or if you believe, the people at the top are controlling both parties, and we've talked about a lot of these situations that occur, the Epstein files, for one, they weren't released by Democrats or Republicans. They were hidden by both. When it comes to the Israeli influence on the government, we've seen how it impacts Democrats. We've seen how it impacts Republicans. So some of these things that are being influenced by both sides, it seems like there's a higher power that is betting on both sides and really running point on whoever's in office. It doesn't matter. We see it as divided because they want to divide and conquer us. But when I think about the Democrats and the Republicans and which way they're leaning as far as more government or less government, it seems as if, and this is when I always think about it with the Southern Dixie, the Dixiecrats, and how the Republican Party used to be the party, or was the party at the time, that freed the slaves. Like, we always have these conversations and people say, well, the party switched, the actual people switched parties. And I still don't have a good grasp on it. And this is why I said I probably have never truly expressed this in the way that I'm getting ready to. But it seems as if the Democrats, because they're losing, right? And when I say they're losing, I'm referring to who's the party of the elites, the people that want the large corporations, that want corporate tax cuts. Those are the conservatives, the Republicans. Those are the people with a lot of money. Like when we break down Democrat versus Republican at a juvenile level, I know when we were growing up, it's like, okay, the Democrats are for the, the common people and the Republicans are for the wealthy. Why did we think that? So looking at it from that point of view, here you have the Republicans. They're already making money. They're winning. They're powerful. They're influential. If you're winning, you want less change because you're winning with the rules as they are. So you don't want interference. You don't want the government coming in and trying to level out the playing field. Why? I'm up. But then the people that are losing, they want more government. They want, hey, you got to change the rules. You got to change this. We got to figure out whatever way we can to compete with the people that are winning. So if the Democrats start winning, right? If they start being successful, then I feel like they would just want less government, less interference. Like, oh, no. Now that we made all these woke changes and stuff, let's leave it as is. And now the Republicans would be, sitting back saying, no, we need to change this. We need to change that. And we're seeing that happen with a lot of the, as Nick calls himself, as well as others, disaffected young white men. We're hearing them align with being victims, being oppressed, not having the country work in their favor, just like we've heard other minorities say, right? Now it's the disaffected white men. They're the ones where the country's not doing anything for them because the country's doing everything for everybody else. That's what's in their mind. I'm not saying, you think what you want from it, but that's what they're complaining about. So now this is why it makes sense why Nick Fuentes is giving Joe Biden credit for saying, hey, what do I get from the Republicans? Absolutely nothing. At least Joe Biden was trying to clean my student debt. At least Joe Biden was trying to remove this doctor's bill, medical bill off of my credit history. That really helped me. We've heard Nick Fuentes say these things that are traditionally associated with Democrats and liberals because he's removing the parties from it. He's not being a fanatic of either party. He's adjusting based on where he is right now. It's like food is amazing, right? When I'm hungry, I want to eat a lot more than if I'm full. If I'm full and let's say I'm putting on the pounds and it's late at night, then it's not good for me to eat food. Just because something is good right now does not mean it's going to be good later on. It depends on what your situation is. So this is where we go wrong with politics a lot of ways, where we just root for certain groups rather than root for what makes sense in the moment, what is in our best interest at the moment. Now, some people may say, well, you have no allegiance to a party. Well, the politicians have no allegiance to the people. So why would we have an allegiance to them? Then you end up like black people just continuously voting for the Democratic Party, expecting something to actually get done for you, but nothing ever gets done because you just blindly continue to vote for them. So why would they spend their time, effort, energy, resources on helping you when you're going to vote for them anyway? The only way that we can use our leverage properly is if we remove ourselves from seeing things from a gang mentality of Democrats versus Republicans and just see what is best for us. There is no we, it's us. It's we the people, if anything. We the people is not we the people and the politicians. It's totally different. So that was kind of just my thought on that. And I'm going to drop that. I don't know if y'all peeped, but when Alex Jones and his team put up that Jonathan Greenblatt, the ADL leader, he accidentally identified as Israeli. I went back and looked at the video. I'm going to leave the video here and y'all have whatever thoughts y'all have on it. But it is funny to see him constantly say, we. And then at the end, he catches himself and realizes like, oh, that's right. We get accused of working for Israel and being more associated with Israel rather than America. These are the same criticisms that we have with AIPAC and them being the only foreign. I know they're not called foreign. It's an American organization, but obviously we know that they have a strong affiliation with Israel. Meanwhile, other countries aren't able to not register as a foreign lobbying group. It's interesting to hear Jonathan Greenblatt, who's supposed to be a head of an American organization, constantly referring to Israel, acting like, we know that's your home. We know that you have a stronger affiliation with Israel than America. It just is what it is. And if y'all don't believe me, take a look at the video now.
The national symbol of Israel is the shield. It's the Star of David. The symbol of our people is not a weapon of war. It's an instrument of defense. The thing that most embodies our entire ethos is not harming others. It's, again, creating a better world. This is fundamental to our tradition for thousands of years. And so the idea that our national anthem would be the Hatikva, would be the hope, I should say it's the Israel's national anthem. So the idea that our national anthem would be the Hatikva, would be the hope, I should say it's the Israel's national anthem.
All right, so one other thing that I wanted to focus on that they briefly pulled up on the screen where I couldn't even read it, and I had to go back, and it was a quote from Henry Kissinger. He's believed to have said this, all right? And I don't think it's confirmed, but they put it up on the screen, and I thought it was a very interesting quote, and I think it applies to today's times. Now, they were talking about the LA riots when Henry Kissinger said this, and he said, today, America would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful. Extended versions sometimes add, this is especially true if they were told that there was an outside threat. Individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government. So I don't know if we're talking about aliens. I don't know if we're talking about a different country. I don't know what they're talking about. When they say world government, that makes me think, well, are we talking about something extraterrestrial, or are we talking about something that is a part of humanity? I don't know. That's like Independence Day with Will Smith. Y'all remember that? Classic. All right, so then they go on to have the conversation with Peter Thiel and Palantir. And if you haven't seen the documentary that they did on Peter Thiel and the technocrats on YouTube, check that out. You'll learn more about Peter Thiel, his former partnership with Elon Musk, his relationship with JD Vance, and how he's impacted politics in a big way with opening up his pockets, signing some checks and really using his money to leverage certain things. Case in point, JD Vance. And Nick is pointing out how, not just with Peter Thiel, but with Silicon Valley. It's funny. I remember, I think Alex Jones was saying that, Trump, he was looking at Trump as different as with the globalist. He was looking at Trump and then he was looking at the globalist. And Nick Fuentes is sitting there like, it's hard to tell who's who. Saying with Silicon Valley, they're in bed with Trump. He's supporting the war on Gaza. He's in bed with Israel. He won't deport illegal laborers. He cut the corporate tax. A lot of these things that Trump is doing, we continue to say it, but these are not what the American people voted for. Even when you're deporting people because you want to make the big corporations happy, where, hey, in agriculture, we're going to keep you, in the restaurant industry, we're going to keep you. Aren't those jobs that Americans can be doing? Isn't that the whole reason why Trump put out these tariffs? So you can incentivize companies to build and manufacture their products in America. So that way we can hire American workers. But I guess Trump doesn't want to piss off in the meantime. He doesn't want to upset, the big corporations. So therefore he said, you know what? We rely on them, I guess, a little bit too much in these particular industries. So therefore we'll keep them on. We'll have a little carve out when it comes to deportations for them. What are y'all thoughts on it? All right. So then they go on to talk about this CNN pollster. The fact that Google searches are down 89%, and this guy on CNN is celebrating that Donald Trump, he's a genius, or whatever he was saying. But the fact that you're celebrating him for covering up a huge story that he campaigned on and bragging about how there hasn't been that much movement away from him. I don't know who they're polling, if that's even accurate, but is that really what we're bragging about here? So I share the same thoughts as Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes on that one. This situation is getting more and more confusing, but this is how fast things are moving right now, where I totally forgot that Elon put out the tweet saying, yeah, the Epstein files, they're not coming out because Trump's in them. What did he say? Like news flash, breaking news, or he said something. Is Trump getting a whooping for not following through and pushing and demanding for regime change in Iran? When you look at that clean break strategy that Netanyahu had some folks in America put together. It seems like all of this is just a part of the bigger plan to gain more and more power and control in that Middle Eastern region by Netanyahu. So when you start putting all these things together, it seems like it may be something realistic with Trump being on punishment, especially the way that he's been acting, doing the opposite of what his base seems to want, the opposite of what he campaigned on. Mr. No New Wars. Now you're just supporting Israel. Like it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? But I guess when something's being held over your head, depending on what it is, I guess people will go to great lengths to rationalize however they need to why it's better for the country. Right? What's best for Trump is what's best for the country. That's how he's probably thinking in his mind. But eventually the truth's gonna come to light. The truth shall come to light. And I'm sitting here questioning, like, does it come to light with the Epstein files, with the JFK files, with 9/11? And we're definitely going to get into what Tucker Carlson just went on Piers Morgan and had a conversation about what, and I think Tucker just put out a documentary on 9/11 exposing a lot of that, but there's still a lot of questions out there. So the last thing I'll cover is the difference between Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes in their approach to Donald Trump. Whether if you're on the Alex Jones side and you're saying like, hey, there's two ships here, one sinking fast, one sinking slow. I'm gonna stay on the slow sinking ship and try to fix it. Nick Fuentes is like, yo, it's gone. Like we've already been here for too long. And what Alex Jones is pretty much saying is the same argument that I've had with multiple people when I'm like, yo, let's just not vote. Let's force them to take our vote seriously. If we got to take one step back to eventually run forward and for them to take us seriously, then let's do that. But Alex Jones has the mindset. I mean, he's saying it a different way. Normally, when I was telling people, they were saying your ancestors died for the right for you to vote. No, my ancestors died for my vote to mean something, for it to matter, not just for me to go to a poll and to vote for people that don't take me seriously. But us being lazy, we thought that it just stopped with, oh, we got the right to vote. And that's what our ancestors died for. We can leave it there. No, we're supposed to continue applying pressure and leverage our votes to get the things that are necessary, that we believe are necessary for our community to flourish. Period. However you identify your community, you do what's best for you and yours, right? Your group. Your group may be all of America. Your group may be this party, that part, whatever it is for you. But we're supposed to all leverage our votes. We haven't been doing that. So when Nick Fuentes is sitting here saying like, nah, doing the same thing and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Another thing that used to come up when I told people, because I sat out of 2 elections. This last election, I voted for Trump. And now I'm going back to my mindset now. Now I'm open to changing, open mindset. But how I'm feeling right now is I'm going back to not voting. Like they still not taking it seriously. They weren't taking the vote seriously when I was voting Democrat. Trump definitely isn't taking the vote seriously right now. So why do it? Y'all keep playing in our face. Nah, we could play too. You think that we're just going to vote for you blindly? We'll see. And if it doesn't impact you, Trump, then the person that comes after you, they can blame you. And maybe they won't play those same games that you played, so they can learn from the lesson that you created. And what's funny about this conversation, and I'm just speaking from my own experience as well, but when you tell people like, yo, we shouldn't vote, you can make all the sense in the world. But in their mind, they're like, oh, well, it makes sense, but you're never going to get enough people to not vote to where it matters. And it's like, yo, y'all just have this mindset like, damn. People would rather go along with the get along. And what it shows is that all of these people that complain about the government, complain about the system holding them back, in reality, they believe more in the system than they believe in we the people. They believe in that system more. When they tell me like, oh, well, that's a great idea, it makes sense, but I'm going to still vote because I just don't think that you can get enough people to just not vote. It's like, well, yeah, that's because everybody has the mindset that you have. So maybe if you shifted your mindset, then you can help others around you who you have influence over shift their mindsets as well. And then it can snowball. But deep down, those people, they actually still believe in the system, even though the system has never done anything for them, according to them in any other conversation besides this conversation. In any other conversation, they'll say, well, the government's never done anything for her. But once you start pressing like this, all right, we'll stop voting. Why are you voting? So what? No, everybody else ain't going to do it. Why don't you do it? It's what's right. You agree with it, right? They'll start saying, well, the government has done certain. They'll start pushing that type of narrative. It's all, look, man, at the end of the day, the majority of us are going to be sheep, but that doesn't give the non-sheep an excuse to behave like sheep. All right. So that's what I'll finish y'all off with. I think they finished off the show agreeing that it's no longer MAGA. You know, I think Alex Jones says instead of making America great again, he wants to make America free again. And they're both pushing this 1776. It's America first. I actually got to look into, you know, what exactly they're referring to with 1776. But the last thought that I actually will share is that, and matter of fact, before I share this last thought, I think it is important to note that no matter whose side of the argument you're on or side you're on or who you lean towards strategy-wise, Nick Fuentes or Alex Jones, I think it is important what Nick did note as far as when you look at who's in the White House, who is Trump surrounding himself with? Who is he around all day, every day, visiting the White House, going to dinner, all this other stuff? He's around the people that were the never Trumpers. The real patriots, as they mentioned, who pushed the line for Trump to get elected, they don't have those invites. And the reason why they don't have those invites, even though Alex Jones says that he's been invited, but the reason why a lot of others may not have the same warm welcome and invites that these never Trumpers, people that insulted him, talked ish about him, and especially when you think about how petty Trump is and how he remembers people talking about him or doing bad to him, he holds that it so close to heart, it just makes you wonder again, why is he doing these things? The people that passionately fought for him, they don't have those invites. Meanwhile, the neocons, they got a seat at the table. So I'm more along the lines of what Nick said. Y'all ain't going to give me a seat at the table, then I'll flip this table and we'll move from there. So that's the energy that I'm on. And the thought that I was going to leave you with is that when people are good at home, it makes it easier to help others out. And I had a ... and I asked myself, right? Because I was asking myself, I was like, if we can figure out how to improve the lives of people in America to where they have a better household, like literally a household, then I think that they would be more willing and open to helping others. So I'm not even sure where that thought came about or what it was regarding at the time when I wrote it down, but maybe it's just something for us to think about over the next day or so. All right. I'll see y'all soon. Thanks for tapping in and thank y'all for continuing to support. And as always, I'll see y'all on the next video.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.